All right, well, thank you very much. I thought what I would try to do is take the wonderful information that Lucy provided out to you, take what Scott said, and try to come full circle just a little bit to provide back to you what I hear every single day at Technion, which is people asking me, how do we take sit-stand and how do we integrate it? And is there one solution that is ready for everybody to actually implement and to use? So I wanted to take you through that. So does one height adjustable solution fit all? How many people actually think there is one? By show of hands. Really? Nobody? No? Okay. All right, and then what should be considered when evaluating integrating height adjustability into your workplace? Now, I chose the wording on that very carefully, right? I called it evaluating integrating, right? Because that's one of the key pieces of the puzzle that I think a lot of us miss when we try to put height adjustability, okay, or you can call it sit-stand, or just integrating movement by supporting different seated and standing postures into your workspace, right? It's about integrating it into your space, okay? It's not just about putting something on top of a desk and letting somebody try to succeed, right? You need to integrate it for success. So before I get into this, I always like to know where someone's coming from if I'm listening to them and think that I should take their opinion seriously. And so my role at Teknion is that I wear two hats. I get to have the unique pleasure of leading all of the product development for ergonomic products, along with the marketing behind it. And then I get to lead the research teams that go out into the field and find out the information of what should we be caring about, what are the researchers like Dr. Callahan and the rest of his team saying is important. And then it's also, what are you guys saying, right? What are the clients that are actually taking these products, giving them to real users, what are they saying are important? Okay? Because I know as an industry what we think is important, right? We have our standards. We think that if we can do this, we can fit most of you, which at the end of the day allows us to sell products to most of you, right? But we need to make sure that we have our goals and our priorities established and in the right space so that when you do go and find these products that you can actually say, hey, I know they did their homework, they did their thought, right? They looked at these things, I'm going to get something that's going to help most of my people. Okay? So the first thing when you're looking at a height adjustable solution, right, and can it fit all of my people, is you need to define your goal. And I know that sounds extremely simple. It's not. You get a group of 10 people that are in charge of procuring furniture for an entire organization to get set on a goal of what they're trying to achieve. That's extremely difficult. Most of the time they hire outside consultation, they hire design firms, architecture firms to bring that type of information and insight into the project. So you need to define that goal. I look at it from an ergo point of view, and it's, are you trying to do change management? Are you trying to somehow take an organization that's currently in the private office, and are they going to exit private offices and go out into the open plan, right? Is it going down to smaller spaces, or are they expanding their spaces, right? Is there a corporate wellness initiative? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve with your space, okay? And so then I think we can all agree that movement has kind of been the topic of the day, right? So we're going to try to achieve movement or posture change, right? When we do that, we need to know, are we going to be proactive or are we going to be reactive? Because that really changes what products you can put into your facility. Okay, if you're going to be proactive, you pretty much have a blank canvas except for your budget. If you're going to be reactive, you now have a large process to go through, and there's a lot more hoops and hurdles that you're going to have to deal with. Okay, and I have a feeling that's everybody, or that's most of your day in and day out challenge. Right? So you need to do that. I also say that be specific in your goal if you're going to actually mandate certain things. So if you're going to call out a specification, as Lucy said, that you're going to have 22.6 to 48 plus on a sit-stand height adjustable table, you need to understand what you just mandated. You just mandated that you're going to go to an electric height adjustable product that's going to have the highest price tag in the industry, right? Like that's just how it's going to be on that one, right? Because the engineering behind doing something like that in that type of range, that's where we are as an industry. Okay, so you have to understand where your specifics are going. The other thing is that you need to have those goals that say, well, okay, so I want sit-stand, but I really need to define my output, right? And Dr. Robertson said it, right? It's okay to adjust things, right? Okay, so do you want it 4 or 6 times a day? You can say those things. That could be a goal of your entire project of including sit-stand, that you're going to try to get your workers to stand up 4 times a day or 6 times a day. You need something measurable for at the end of the day, you can say, yes, we achieved it or we didn't. Okay? Define your target user group. Well, who are you trying to do this for? Because a lot of times companies aren't doing it for everybody. Right? So who is that group? BlackBerry said, right, oh, I have one target group that I'm going to try to look at first. Right? You have to have a medical note. Okay, and then after that, we're going to try to look at people that had just phones or technology that they were tied to. Right? There was a definition there that at least provided some guidance. Okay, a lot of times in my world, what it is we have a very specific group of engineers. And they all have this same technology that they need to use. And it drives where they need to work and how big their tables need to be and the spaces around them. Right? So that target group isn't just, oh, it's everybody. Right? You need to be specific. Right? And if you have multiple goals for different groups, that's okay. It will really help you through the process of trying to define what you want to buy or what you want to provide. Right? Then defining the application. Right? Is it the medical note? Is it a new building? Right? Those types of things, they help with that. But really is it an open plan? Is it a semi-enclosed? Is it an enclosed space? Is it collaborative? Right? I don't know how many of you think about those things on a daily basis, but those are completely different applications for the products that would be put into those spaces. Right? If you're going to have it in a private office with really heavy case goods, that's a very premium product, you're going to need a very different product than if you're doing an open plan benching environment. Right? The budgets are going to be different. The way that you apply them is going to be different. The structure is different. Okay? Know your budget. That I can't tell you that enough. Right? It's that people come in and they just want the absolute best for everybody, and I think everybody up here would love to provide the absolute best to everybody. But at the end of the day, someone has to pay for it, and so we need to be very realistic about where we need to go with those things. And then this last one. This is a coined phrase from Teknion, but I like it not because of that, but because it actually, it's a part that I think as a group, ergonomists tend to miss sometimes. And it's not because we don't think it matters, right? It's because we don't tend to be in charge of it. And it's that the design of the space does matter. The beauty, the aesthetic of the space matters. That's why the entire discipline of industrial design or interior design exists, right? Every single meeting that I go to, there is a component of a designer that's there that's saying, no, this is what I want the space to look like. Do you know how many designs we've had to change because the color of the year is simply white? Well, that color now drives everything. So if you can't make a table base in simply white, we'll just go somewhere else. Right? Those types of decisions, because they want their people to aesthetically find their space pleasing, they matter. Okay, so if it looks good, people will touch it, they will use it, and at the end of the day, we just want them to use these types of products, right? That's where an ROI starts. Okay? So once we've gone through those things, as a team, you can actually define what fit means to you, right? Because it's going to be different for everybody. So now that you have your definition of fit, we can get a little bit more specific. Right? You've laid out some of your specifications, some of your goals, some of your space needs. You've looked at who it's going to be for, right? And now the 4 S's. This is kind of like this is where I start with everything in height adjustability, right? It's speed, sound, stability, and style. If you can come to a consensus on what you want to do for those 4 things, you just picked your product. And you picked how you want to handle it in each one of your applications. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing, but those 4 things are what matter the most with height adjustability in an application. Okay? If it's too fast, people get scared. If it's too fast, you tend to get a high pitch that comes out of it on the sound. If it's too slow, people think it's broken, that it's not working properly. Okay? If it's not stable, nobody wants to use it. And if it's ugly as sin, no one wants it on their desk, and they don't want to be by it every single day. Right? So those 4 things truly matter. Right? The product application, it shows up again here, and that's really because it's about what type of work you're doing in that space. Right? So not only have you just been provided a private office or an open plan, but now what are you doing in that space, and does that type of sit-stand or that type of height adjustability, it doesn't even have to be a sit-stand adjustable desk, right? It can be like what Scott talked about earlier, which was a seated and a standing height option that isn't adjustable really if the space provides it, right, or accommodates it, right? What are you doing there? And are your people going to actually be receptive to it? Because you're going to go through all of this work and you're going to try to really do your homework and figure it out, and they aren't going to want to use it. You need to know that ahead of time, right? The technology and tools, this is a really hard one. This one I struggle with all the time, okay? And that is because technology changes a whole lot faster than furniture, right? We try to keep up, but a cell phone has a life cycle, of maybe what, 2 years, 3 years, and then it's got a development cycle of maybe 6 months. Okay, furniture has a life cycle of maybe 15 years if we do it properly, and its development cycle of maybe 1 year to 2 years, right? If it's not that complicated, maybe 3 years in the case of a chair, right? And so, they're just on different wavelengths, okay? And so we try to respond, and we try to integrate that as best we can, but it's difficult sometimes, right? And so we want to make sure that what we do provide is neutral enough that as technology changes, your investment is sound, okay? And so a great place, I forget who brought it up earlier, I think it was BlackBerry, was that, cord length or power management or size of screens on a desk. Those things really matter. If you go through the entire process of defining this sit-stand as your number one or number two source of supporting your wellness movement through movement in your space, and then your IT department doesn't buy cords that are long enough, and you rip a monitor off of your sit-stand desk the first day it gets applied, the whole thing's scrapped. And everything you just did didn't matter, right? So it's those little details that really matter. You need to understand the technology that's going to be there. And also the technology drives posture, right? It's that eye height on your sit-stand apparatus, right? You need to make sure that you're supporting your eyes, you understand what's going to change eye posture, and that above all else, know that your eyes will win, okay? So it's one of those things that if you can have that technology and tools understood, you're going to be farther ahead than you were. The planned outliers, Scott said it best, there's that 5% and the other 5%, right, that we just don't generally deal with, okay? And that's mainly because of cost. Okay, I'll just say it, right? And that's because to take care of that extra 5% out on the far right or the far left is so expensive to do a common product that nobody in this room would ever get that approved. Okay, just so you guys are aware of that. That doesn't mean that things can't be made for it or that they aren't accommodated in other ways. It just is, to answer that first question, is there that one single situation where we can accommodate everybody, right? It's very difficult to put that into one product, okay? And then the training builds success. I think Dr. Robertson did a really good job at showcasing this, but clients have a really hard time with this day in and day out, doing something that can be adopted and adhered to, right? That was a very complex, very thorough training module, right? You need to have extreme corporate support to do something like that. Okay, if it's just, yeah, okay, you can buy the desks, I guess it's better than just putting in some millwork, but you got to make sure people use it. Well, that's a little different, right? And so figuring out how you're going to train your people, right? That's probably the best thing that I can say to you is that you're going to find your product, be very knowledgeable about your product, understand why you put it into the space so you can tell that story, talk to the designers of why it's okay that it's there, it's not messing up their lines, it's providing real value into it, right? And then you can have that story that says, sure, we can also train people on the benefits of this, right? I think that's the best way to answer, when you're evaluating and integrating it, you're integrating it into that space. You have to remember that, right? It's not just, here, I'll just solve everything. Okay? Thanks.